Well, the war ended, and with time, our fledgling nation grew stronger and stronger. In the meantime, writers and philosophers stepped back and considered how this country was going to truly emerge as a great and wonderful nation, united and solid. Less than 50 years later, during the War of 1812, the amateur poet Francis Scott Key watched the burning of Fort McHenry and wrote the words that we all know today. But do we really? Key wrote 4 stanzas to the Star-Spangled Banner, and here now are the beautiful words of the 4th and last stanza. Consider now the words of A Nation's Strength by writer and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, written years later in 1904. He surely knew the heart of our strength.
What makes a nation's pillars high and its foundation strong? What makes it might to defy the foes that round it throng? It is not gold. Its kingdoms grand go down in battle shock. Its shafts are laid on sinking sand, not on abiding rock. Is it the sword? Ask the red dust of empires passed away. The blood has turned their stones to rust, their glory to decay. And is it pride? Ah, that bright crown seems a nation sweet. But God has struck its luster down in ashes at his feet. Not gold, but only men can make a people great and strong. Men who for truth and honor's sake stand fast and suffer long. Brave men who work while others sleep, who dare while others fly. They build a nation's pillars deep and lift them to the sky.
Well, as you know, time does march on. Our country struggled with differences in thoughts and opinions as it grew, and by the mid-1800s, civil war seemed inevitable. No one was more aware of or more affected by this war than President Abraham Lincoln. And you can almost hear his anguish, distress, concern, and love for this country of ours as he delivers the address to the people of Gettysburg in November of 1863.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated long endure. We're met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. Brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
How terribly difficult that time was. The fact that we were able to survive and in fact grow even more through the tumult of the Civil War only demonstrates our determination as a nation. And not only did we survive the Civil War, we continued to show the world our strength and power. During World War I, the United States was a strong ally in Europe. And for the first time, the rest of the nations in the world saw us as a powerful and resilient nation. We also watched as our young soldiers left the safety and security of our homeland to go to the far reaches of the earth to fight for us. And we watched as so many of those soldiers lost their lives. This next poem was written by John McCrae, who was actually a Canadian soldier and surgeon during World War I. He was also a poet, and it is said that McCrae wrote this poem after witnessing the death of a good friend during a battle in Belgium. The poem is entitled In Flanders Fields, and is representative of soldiers from all countries, including ours, who have lost their lives in battle.
In Flanders fields the poppies grow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. Now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours, to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Robert Frost is considered America's poet, and he certainly lived and wrote prolifically about life in America. In 1961, Frost was invited to read a poem at the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy. He had written the poem Dedication to read, but the poem was very long, and the sunlight that day cast a glare on the paper, making it difficult for the 86-year-old man to read. So instead, he stood and recited the gift outright, which he knew by heart. The poem has been analyzed as much or more than just about any written work by an American writer, and the more it is analyzed, the more we love it. Although it may be hard to understand the first time you hear it, just like any difficult piece, the more you study it, the more you will appreciate it.
Land was ours before we were the lands. She was our land more than 100 years before we were her people. She was ours in Massachusetts, Virginia, but we were England's, still colonials, possessing what we still were unpossessed by, possessed by what we now no more possess. Something we were withholding made us weak until we found out that it was ourselves. We were withholding from our land of living, and forthwith found salvation in surrender. Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright. The deed of gift was many deeds of war, to the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, artless, unenhanced, such as she was, such as she would become.
The legacy of the American Revolution continues to be shaped, interpreted, and recast. And American poetry continues to set itself the task of analyzing this nation's violent and radical foundation, as well as the deep and abiding love that our patriots, both past and present, have for this beautiful country of ours. Here's hoping that the writers of the stories and the music of our history will never stop, and that they will continue to tell about our America in the most beautiful way of all.
While the storm clouds gather